everybody, my name's Kelsey and I work with the OBA Tech Transfer team.
My name is Glennis and I also work for the Tech Transfer team.
And my name's Mike and I work for the Ontario Animal Health Network.
And we're in the field today and we are going to do some mite monitoring. So Glennis and I have been beekeepers for a while, so we know the deal with mite monitoring, but Mike is brand new. He has never been in a beehive before and he's never mite monitored, so we're going to teach him how to do it. Are you ready for it?
Excited.
Great.
Alright, so before we get out into the field to monitor for Varroa, we want to make sure we have all the gear necessary to do so. So for the alcohol wash, you're going to need a mite shaker. So this is just 2 jars with a screen through it. There's a lot of different commercial varieties of a mite shaker, so whichever one you have will work just fine. We have our alcohol to do the alcohol wash with. We've got a bin and scoop, so we're going to shake bees into this bin and then use the scoop to put our bees into the alcohol jar. And this is just a bigger bin if you find that a little bit more convenient. So that's all the stuff you're going to need to take your alcohol wash, but there are some things you can bring that help you count your mites in your alcohol wash as well. So these things include a counter. So sometimes, especially if you have higher mites, it's hard to keep the number straight in your head. So having a counter sometimes makes it easier to keep track of your numbers. And then if you have a hard time picking out Varroa mites from all the other crud that's going to be in your sample, you can bring tools to help you, like magnifying glasses or a headlamp, anything that's going to help you identify a little mite from a little piece of crud or a stinger or something like that. Now the last thing you want to bring is very critical. So it's a notebook and a pencil. So in beekeeping, if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. So having a notebook is going to make sure you can record your numbers and remember them for next time.
Alright, so we are going to go into this hive here. This is the colony that we will be monitoring for Varroa mites. So we're just going to go through, and the first thing that we're going to want to do is find our queen. Because we are taking a sample of bees in alcohol, we really want to make sure that our queen does not end up in that sample of alcohol. We are going into our hives to do something to try and keep them healthy, so we don't want to be doing something like accidentally killing the queen that's going to set them back. So the very first thing we do before we do our alcohol wash is find the queen and cage her to keep her safe.
What if we can't find the queen?
That's okay. If you can't find the queen, the next best thing to look for is bee eggs. So eggs will always hatch after 3 days. So if you have eggs present in the hive, that means that you have had a queen present in the last 3 days. So it's a good sign that the colony is queen right if you're finding those eggs. If you aren't able to find the queen, you can still take your sample. You just want to make sure that you are checking the frame that you're going to be sampling from very, very thoroughly to make sure that she is not there. So just give it an extra double, triple check, and then you are good to go.
Now for me, who knows very little, does a queen, like if I was to look at a bunch of bees, could I pick out a queen, or is it specifically where it is in the hive, or it's what it actually looks like physically?
So the queen does look physically different from the other bees. She is a bit bigger, particularly in the abdomen, which is the bottom segment of her body. So she has a much longer abdomen than the other workers. As well, to make things nice and easy, we actually mark our queens with a paint dot, so you can always have that little, that little cheat right there. But we'll find her and we will show you.
And it's not like a standard thing for every hive. The queen is usually in the middle or the queen is on the outside. It's always different.
She can be anywhere. She will often be on an empty frame or a frame with very young brood.
I see one with a dot.
Yeah, we have the queen on this frame. So she will often be on a frame where she has space to actually lay eggs, but that's not, she can be absolutely anywhere below the queen excluder. She can be really tricksy. So I have my queen cage here. ready to go. So I am going to pick her up and put her in the cage.
And if you do this, the rest of the bees don't go crazy?
Nope. So people ask that a lot, but it's not about like the physical presence of the queen. It's not that they're seeing her and seeing you pick her up and thinking that you're attacking her. It's actually about the presence of her pheromone. So her pheromone won't have dispersed yet, so they, as far as they're concerned, everything is queen right and ship-shape and good to go. Alright, so now that I have my queen in a cage, because it's a hot day, I am just going to put her in between a couple of frames so that she's not sitting out in the sun and boiling.
Alright, so now that we have our queen, she's tucked away safe, we're going to get prepped to do our alcohol wash. So step one is to prep your jar. Now you can either do this at home or prep your jar in the yard. And by prepping your jar, we just mean you have to put a bit of alcohol in it. So try to do this away from the colony, just in case a spill happens or you get stung and drop the jar. You don't want that landing on your hive. So take a few steps away, find a flat surface to do it on. And this one already has alcohol, so I'll show you the second jar. This is empty. And you want about a third to half of the jar filled up with alcohol. The amount of alcohol doesn't really matter. As long as there's enough to coat all of the bees, that's what you're aiming for. It's actually the amount of bees that you put in the jar that really matters. So this one's ready to go. We're going to set it over here and get some bees for shaking. Alright, so now we have to get some bees for sampling. Now the bees that we're targeting are going to be coming off of worker brood frames. So Varroa mites reproduce along with bees in their brood. That's where you're going to find your infestation. So those are the bees that you want to target. So we're going to find some brood frames and shake them into this bin, and then we're going to scoop them into our jar. We'll demo for Mike, and then he can try all on his own. So here we go. We're ready to accept some bees.
So to shake, I'm just going to get myself nice and set up. You can see we've put the bin right in front of the hive, and that way if any bees don't make it into the bin and they're, just in the grass, they can just easily make their way back into the hive, no problem. We also don't want to be stepping on them, and we won't be standing right in front of the hive, so right in front of the hive entrance is the best place for the bin. We want to make sure that we are shaking at least 2 frames of brood. That's just going to give us a more representative sample. So if you're just going to shake one brood frame, then that's kind of telling you just more what's going on that one brood frame. We want to see what's going on in the colony as a whole, so we're going to shake more than one. So I'm just going to grip my frame nice and tightly. I'm going to position myself over the bin, and I'm going to do kind of a sharp down and then up motion. It's not about kind of frantically shaking the frame over and over. It's getting that nice, crisp, up and down kind of motion going.
Beautiful. So after you shake, there's going to be some bees that fly away. That's okay. You just need the ones that stay in the bin. And then if you don't have 2 frames ready to shake right away, they're going to start crawling up the sides. You can just bang the bin on the ground and they'll go back to the bottom of the bin. Alright, so now for the shake. So I've got a half-cup scoop here. So I'm going to bang the bees to one corner of the bin, scoop them up, and put them in my jar. And that wasn't quite half a cup. So I'm going to scoop a few more and put them in. If you're worried about not getting 300 bees, you can always count the number of bees that are in this sample afterwards. Your target is 300 bees. Now that works out to about half a cup, which is pretty convenient for beekeepers when we're doing sampling. Now once they're in this alcohol, they do have to sit in this alcohol for quite a while. So I usually recommend just setting this to the side, finishing your brood inspections, and then coming back to it afterwards. But right now, we're gonna hand it over to Mike. All right, so we're gonna get you to do it right from the start. So I'm gonna pour this alcohol back into the jar,
Okay.
or jug. Glennis is gonna loosen up some frames for you.
And is there any tip for scooping up the bees, or just try not to grab one directly?
Yeah, so you wanna try, when you're grabbing the bin, that's when you're gonna get stung if you grab a bee, so just be careful where you're placing your hand.
Yeah.
But once they're there, you can bang them and they're not gonna come after you. It's gonna be intimidating because they probably will fly up,
Yeah.
but they're just flying back home.
Okay.
The nurse bees that we're targeting today, they're younger and they don't have a strong defensive instinct yet.
Okay.
So they're too young to be guard bees, so these are not the ones that are trying to sting you.
Gotcha.
So the only time usually that you're going to get stung when you're sampling is if, you grab a bee.
Yeah.
You might, we're going to shake a couple frames for you, you might get bees touching your hand, but unless, say, you grab the handle and one bee is underneath it, they're not going to try to sting you automatically.
Okay.
All right, and we do have the smoker close by, so if you get nervous, just drop everything, we'll smoke your hand, and we'll get the bees away from you.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to prep your sample jar by pouring a bit of alcohol into this.
Okay.
For sure.
1/3 to 1/2. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
Is that good?
Yep, that's perfect.
Right.
And make sure that your other half is close by. You don't want to be
Yes.
running around looking for that once you have bees on.
So I wouldn't actually put it back on yet because you want it like easily.
Yeah, because we're going to put the bees in here. Right?
Yeah.
So, do that.
Yep, that's
Cool.
great. So I think each one of us will shake a frame so that we have enough bees to work with. So you can go first, and then you can come around and grab the scoop.
I'm going to shake a frame.
Do you want to shake a
sure,
frame?
yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
that's part of monitoring.
Okay. Doesn't have a whole. I'll give you a better one that has more bees.
Well, if there's not that many bees, that's cool. That's okay.
Oh, you'll get a better shake this way. Okay. So you're going to hold the frame from the corners. Have a nice strong hold on it. So
And
when
does
you
it
shake
matter
it.
which, like if I go from this side, that's okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Hey,
Yeah, there we
perfect.
go. And even if you still have some bees, even like a couple up and downs like
Okay.
that is fine too.
Here, I can take that from you.
Thank you.
And we'll do one more. These bees are a little flighty. They don't super want to stay in the bin where we're putting them.
All right, so
It's
here's
almost
your
like
scoop.
they know what's coming.
So I'm gonna bang them down and get them to one side for you.
Thank you.
And there you can just scoop out of there, nice and full. Better than my scoop was. There you go, perfect. Great, excellent.
Can I get
So
a
now
couple
I would
more?
get just a couple more because there were a lot that went on the side there. Yep. Wonderful. All right, now you take, take both sides and screw them together. And start shaking it up. There's your alcohol wash.
Not so bad. And I was pretty scared, and that was okay.
You did great. You
Yeah,
did
it was
great.
perfect. It was a good shake too.
Uh-huh. So, when you read the official methodology for alcohol wash, it says that you need to stand here and shake for 30 minutes. So we're gonna go get some lunch, we'll be back for you. No, you don't have to shake for 30 minutes. You can just compensate for the lack of time by shaking really aggressively. My new motto is that if you don't get stingers in the alcohol wash, then you didn't shake aggressively enough.
And like it is shaking like
Yeah,
Exactly.
They're already dead. You can't kill them twice, so might as well go for it.
Exactly. And I've never met a shaker that doesn't leak. So
Yeah.
sometimes taking a few steps away from the colony is a good idea. Again, anything that's left in that colony is safe for now. We don't want to cause extra harm, so making sure we're not splashing them all over the place. All right, so it's also a great idea, just so that this sample gets as much time as possible to sit, so that the bees succumb to the alcohol and the mites also succumb to the alcohol, and they're able to separate from the bees more easily. I'm just gonna let that sit while we finish up our inspection here. We're gonna close up the colony, and then we'll revisit the alcohol washes. Any bees that are left over in the bin, they get to see another day, so they can just be poured right back into the mother colony. So we're just gonna shake. And then once you think you've shaken enough, you want to make it so that the bees and the alcohol that's going to contain all the mites get separated. So now if you do it just like this, as we both just did, it will separate it, but there's a high chance that a lot of the mites are going to get trapped in between bees. So there's this nifty technique called the tornado. So go with me. We're going to shake, 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 and then start doing sort of a circular motion, and then flip it up and sort of bang it down. So that hopefully allows all of the mites to slip through the bees and fall into this bottom section. Yeah, so keep that tornado going until all the liquid is through. Yeah, there you go. Looks great.
Oh, I think I just put more.
You did,
liquid
yeah.
in
So,
there.
and it doesn't really matter. You can redo this over and over and over again. You're just, by doing that, you're just going to be more and more thorough. So there we go. And then at the end, you'll have all your liquid and the mites hopefully below, and your bees on top. Now all you have to do to count your mites is look at this liquid. So if we look all over the place, we can count the number of mites that we see. And mites can sink, they can float, they can hover in between. So you really do have to look at all of the liquid.
Do you see any in yours?
I do. Do you want to switch?
I would love to, yeah. Thank you. Do you see any in mine? Oh, I see. Is that one down there?
Yeah.
That tiny thing?
Yeah. Oh, wait.
No, that looks like a fly.
So this here, yeah, that looks like a stinger.
Okay.
And then this one over here is the mite. So remember I said if you don't have any stingers, you didn't shake hard enough?
Yeah.
I don't see any stingers
Oh,
in your
no!
mite wash.
Oh, cool.
Alright, and I still don't see anything in yours. But there are a lot of different things that can look like a mite, especially when you're first learning. You know, there's little grains of pollen sometimes, there's crud, there's stingers. All of those sort of look like a varroa mite if you're not used to what you're looking for. So sometimes it makes it easier. If you go into the field with a tub like this, even the same tub that you use to shake your bees in, you can pour that wash into here. It spreads everything out a little bit and makes it a lot easier to count. Especially a white one like this. Mites are red and they're going to pop up really, really well against this white background.
There's lots of little pieces.
Yep, lots of
I don't
little
know.
pieces.
Are any of those mites?
Nope, none are mites.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, there's the one in here, which is interesting because when I saw the stinger part, I thought, is that a mite? And when I saw the mite, I thought, that is definitely a mite. You know what I mean? Where it's like lots of things look like it, but when you look close, if you've seen pictures of them, it's very obvious that what is a mite and what is not a mite.
Yeah, absolutely. The hardest sample to count is one that's 0.
Yes,
because it's quite confusing. Once you have a mite to compare it to, then it's a lot easier. So definitely having like a book beside you that reminds you what a varroa mite looks like is really useful right off the bat. Yeah.
How many hives do we monitor?
Great question. So the gold standard, ideally, would be to do every single hive. Now, if you are, you know, a hobbyist or a smaller beekeeper, then that is absolutely no problem. For sure, do every hive. If you are maybe running a bigger operation, if you have maybe more hives than is feasible to do every single one, then we want to do a minimum of 10% of the hives in the yard, or at least 5 hives. So for example, this yard has 15 hives in it. So if we were only to do 10%, that would only be about 2 colonies, which is not enough. That wouldn't give us a good understanding of what's actually going on in this yard. So we're going to do that minimum of 5 hives for this yard.
So if you're not doing the monitoring for all of your hives, how do you choose the ones that you're going to use?
For sure. So you want to be sticking with your strongest colonies. And you also want to be sticking with colonies that are queen right and have been queen right for the past little bit. So that means any colonies that have not had any interruptions to the brood cycle. So for example, colonies that swarmed or superseded or have been requeened are not the colonies that we would want to choose. The reason that we want stronger colonies is because Varroa mites grow alongside of the brood. So any colony that has a lot of brood will also have a lot of Varroa mites, and we want to be targeting the highest Varroa levels in our yard.
So once we've identified how many mites we have from our alcohol wash sample, what does that mean? So you have 4 mites. What does that number mean?
Yeah, great question. So you get the total amount of mites that are in that wash. So then you have a number of mites per 300 bees. So with your example, 4 mites per 300 bees. Now we want to divide that by 3. So by dividing by 3, we end up with a mite per 100 bee count. Because we have 300 bees in there, we divide by 3, we get a mite per 100. And that correlates to your percent infestation rate. Okay. And the percent infestation is what the thresholds are based off of.
Oh, okay. And what are thresholds?
Yeah, great question. So thresholds are a number that we developed that you can compare your own percent infestation to, and it tells you whether or not you need to treat. Basically, it tells you the severity of your infestation, and we'll talk about thresholds in another video.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and the final thing we're going to do today is just make sure that we write down everything that we did. We've got our dates down, and we have our numbers from our alcohol wash, and we have our numbers from our sticky board. So we remember what they are, and we can reflect back on them later. If anything looks concerning, then we can react to that right away and remember what colonies had what levels.